watched it on YouTube. Now I know it's a fact.
G'day everyone, it's me, the anti-theocrat, back for another one. We're going to give this a bash. This is part 2 of the Q&A from the 3rd of November 2019. If you didn't see part 1, as I will tell you later, please go and watch that. Yeah, I hope you're enjoying the way I'm covering this, or at least finding some value in it. If you're not enjoying it, that's your own problem, I guess. I'm doing what I'm doing. I should shut up, shouldn't I? As before, this was pre-recorded, and I'm going to bugger off now and leave me to run through the show for you. So we're going to start at systemic racism is unquestionable, as the host tells us. Now, if you've come in with this one having not watched the first one, what are you doing here? Go back and watch the first one. For those of you who did see the first one, as you well know, systemic racism is unquestionable.
And entrenched racism is, unquestionable. And if the question from Belinda was, how do we get them to acknowledge racism? Institutions, Jess, you've looked a lot at institutions in the work you're looking at. The police, a key institution dealing with domestic violence. Police, address a domestic violence incident in this country once every 2 minutes. How do we get them to acknowledge and to change?
I'd like to point out that question about how do we get racism out of institution was just asked of the woman who said we need more men in the violence against women sector. Because what we really need is a sexist telling us about racism.
And is smash the patriarchy the only
well,
answer?
there's that. There is smashing the patriarchy.
Smash the evils of the 4th and 5th level of hell, the patriarchy.
Let's smash all of the mythical beings. Why not?
There's, I think the culture of the police is so deeply entrenched, and Nayuka's totally right to talk about the history of colonisation and what's happened particularly in Australia, and it is shared in many, many countries across the world. But what we've done here in Australia is we brought over a culture, in 1788, when we first started coming here, that was absolutely torn apart by domestic violence and child abuse. We brought that culture here.
I'd love to know where she got that historical fact from. Apparently, English culture was ripped apart by domestic violence and child abuse. Totally fucked. I don't know how the hell the English have survived this long.
We brought it to a nation of Indigenous Australians who'd lived here for 65,000 plus years, who had survived and thrived for that long because they knew what was required to keep intimacy and emotional relationships intact. What we did is we came here, we raped and abducted their women and girls. We instilled a system of patriarchy and racism. We then, when we raped and abducted their girls, when they had white babies, we abducted them. And then we legislated for about 180 years to destroy their culture, or to try to destroy their culture.
Okay, I'll let that run on because there was a lot in there, and I think I needed to address it all as one. The Aboriginal people knew how to punish with agonising atrocity anyone who stepped from the law, and they went to war just as well as any other peoples. Aboriginal culture is not perfect. To say, however, that they thrived is totally to ignore how stagnant their culture, growth and technology had become, and to assume that the myriad of other growing cultures would never have found them and changed their lives is to live in fucking la-la land.
Because we thought that they were already doomed and we were almost doing them a favour. So what I think we've come to now is, we imported the violence. There may have been violence in Indigenous cultures before we got here, but they live by a very strict moral code.
Now, you'd be the same sort of ignorant person who'd say that Catholicism was evil because it was, dictating certain things in people's lives. And yet, you defend the possibility that the Aboriginal cultures were violent, but they had strict moral codes, which they policed with extreme violence. Now, how do you think these things are different?
And we've had that cultural violence that's been totally unresolved in this country for over 200 years, and we have not made peace with it. And there's no way that you can change police without changing the community. Police are just people. They're people who live in Australia, and Australia has a very hard, long history of violence against Aboriginal women and girls and Aboriginal boys. And
I had to fast forward that. It was just too fucking dreary. I'll summarise it for you. White people, bad, bad, naughty, violent, violent, bring violent, and make bad. Police no reformy till white people stop being naughty, naughty, bad, bad. Aborigines much better before white man, bad man.
Once we resolve that and do some truth telling around that, there's no chance that the police are going to be reformed. Okay. But do we want them to be reformed, though? I think that's the question. What is it that we... I think the problem is we lack the imagination to think outside of the police. Well, you're saying that we need police at all, but if we don't have police that we want them to be reformed, but if that's the point, can they be? It's a question. It's actually not. It's a waste of time to try and change something like the police. It's truly a waste of time. We've been trying for years and years and years. It hasn't worked. So what are different ways of dealing with the things that we go to police for? So if it's, if it is... Because we did go to police. We did go. And they don't help. Like, Miss Jew is a really good example. She went for help and she ended up dying. But Ali Tanya, she was drinking in public. You would help someone normally. They're going to be thousands of people who are drunk tomorrow and they're going to be helped. Of course. So why do we need to rely on them when we can build communities to do that work for ourselves?
Okay, that was a waste of breath. Basically, everyone there is just prattling about what we can do to get rid of the police and replace them with some sweet other group of people that will just, I guess, police our society for us, but not be the police. The only good thing that came out of that was apparently being drunk and disorderly should be a health response, not a police response. But I don't know if these people realise that we've just made it a criminal offence for drunk people to accost and assault medical professionals, because that's what's happening to medical professionals who have to deal with these people. I think this is definitely a police response that may need some medical assistance. But no, they just want rid of the police.
Look, I think what's missing from this whole conversation is truth-telling.
I've been watching this show and I agree some truth-telling would be a good start.
Indigenous and First Nation issues are not sexy, and there's no currency politically to take them on in a real meaningful way. In order to, because police behaviour is a reflection and expression of the values of this country. And I agree with Jess that truth has never been told. And if we are genuinely about recognition, reconciliation, whatever the language we use that is relevant to First Nations people, and affording dignity and respect, we need to begin by telling the truth. And we need to stop the doublespeak. On the one hand, we appoint a Minister for Indigenous Affairs, and then at the same time, we afford them absolutely disrespect and disregard for events like Uluru closure. So this doublespeak about, on the one hand, we claim, yet those claims are hollow.
Okay, we have so much to get through tonight. I'm going to move us on. Remember, if you hear any doubtful claims on Q&A, let us know on Twitter, and keep an eye on the RMIT ABC Fact Check, the conversation website, for the results.
Complain to the ABC on Twitter, of all places. That seems about as pointless gets. But I'd love to know how the RMIT's fact-checking team went keeping up with the shit coming out of these people's mouths.
The next question comes from Alia Ahmad.
Former US President Barack Obama recently said that people who are politically woke need to get over themselves because they're just being judgmental online and not affecting any change. For many women and gender diverse people of color, online is one of the few safe spaces to actually speak out about injustices within our community and more broadly. What effect do you think that Mr. Obama's words have on these already marginalized voices, and what would you say in response?
I know what I'd say. Shut the fuck up, stop your bitching and moaning, you're not fucking helping anything. I'm on Barack Obama's side. But could I have gotten a better snapshot to sum things up?
Mona?
I completely and utterly disagree with Barack Obama.
Me too.
I go online exactly to tell people to fuck off when they attack me.
Dear Clown Lady, I know you think everything that people say to you is an attack, but let me read this short segment of text. The Dunning-Kruger effect is a cognitive bias in which people mistakenly assess their cognitive ability as greater than it is. I suspect what people are really doing is telling you you're a fucking idiot, and you just can't see it.
No, honestly, it's, this idea of respectability, this idea of civility, this idea of unity, all of these words, decorum, who invented those words? Those words were invented by white men.
I know that there's a social justice feminist tendency to have the bigotry of low expectations working for you, but have you ever heard anyone say that white men invented civility and that nobody else seems to be capable of doing this? How fucking low are your expectations about other people's cultures? Really, she's trying to demonise white society by saying we're the only ones who can learn how to be civil. Worse than that, she wants us to believe there's something wrong with being civil to one another. I mean, I'm quite happy to not be civil to this stupid fuck, but on the whole, societies need civility of some description in order to function. What the fuck is this idiot on about? The rest is just her explaining how the Dunning-Kruger effect plays on you when people tell you that you're a fucking idiot and you have to retaliate because that's the only thing you've got up your sleeve. I'm going to fast forward it all because it's quite pointless. I'll stop it at the interesting bit.
For the benefit of other white men in systems and institutions that were always designed to be for white men. And they weren't designed for women like you and me and so many others, like you said, people of colour and gender diverse people. They never imagined us in those spaces, and then we show up and we just ruin it for them. And so those who abide by the system, and Barack Obama was part of the system and remains part of the system. I also disagree with his wife when she says when they go low, we go high. No, I fucking don't. If you go low, I'm going to come for you.
So no, I do not have the luxury or the privilege to sit there and be civil with people who do not acknowledge my full humanity.
Looking at you, I do have to wonder if you're human, and you don't seem to have human brain function. And on that basis, I don't mind you not being civil with me. I've been bitten by horses before. But just how much privilege do you think you don't have because someone online tells you you're a fucking idiot, when you sit here on national television acting like a fucking idiot?
I refuse, number one. Number two, there are so many voices who have found their platform on social media. Finally, after being the gatekeepers who refuse to let us in for such a long time. I mean, I say here, I include myself kind of in and out. But there are people who have never had any platform. I'm thinking of young black feminists in the United States, indigenous feminists in the United States and Canada. So I know back and forth between the US and Canada. There's one indigenous woman in Canada who every day tweets about missing and killed indigenous women in Canada. Nobody has bothered to find out what happens to them. In the United States, really incredibly successful campaigns have happened online because we refuse to be civil to those who don't recognize and recognize. So for those who say be civil, for those who say be polite, I have an entire chapter on the political importance of profanity. And I'm reminded of a Ugandan feminist called Dr. Seleniani, who's currently in prison in Uganda because she was calling him but she was the mother of the dictator of her country, appointed him as a birth canal, appointed him during birth. And when she was taken to court and during her sentencing, she was videotaped because she's known for her profanity. She stood there in the video, she took off her top, she took off her breast, and she said, fuck you, fuck you.
Okay, if you want to see this bit covered in a bit more detail, Dr. Randa McCammer has done a really good job of it, and I really recommend looking up his channel if you're not already subscribed. Personally, I agree with her on one point. I have no problem with profanity, but I don't think profanity for the sake of profanity is the way you get anywhere. You swear to emphasize and to highlight. You use it as a linguistic tool. You do not use it because you are a tool. Unfortunately, she's the latter. So most of this is just about having to swear because she thinks it's important, without defining how or why. Then she adds some example about North American Canadian natives, women going missing, and some other thing about some crazy woman in Africa who waved her tits at a courtroom. I don't know. I don't know what the fuck that was meant to do with swearing. As far as I know, women are still going missing, and the woman with the tit thing is in prison, so, you know, it doesn't seem to have helped them much. Crass behaviour for the sake of crass behaviour is not a winning move.
No, I talked to you about this. I disagree with Barack Obama. I agree with Seleniani. You're watching Q&A laughing now.
Our next question is from Joss Tate.
Okay. Scott Morrison is talking again about cracking down on protesters and boycotts. But when citizens' democratic rights are progressively degraded, what avenues are left for those citizens to affect political change, at least in between elections?
Actually, I knew you were on the last question, but for this one, if you don't know, Scott Morrison's our Prime Minister. Yes.
Well, as far as I can see, he was upset that climate change organisers were causing grievous harm to industries that are polluting the planet. I mean,
he was very upset. He talks about a new breed of radical activism.
Yeah,
is it a new breed?
Hardly. And I mean, the whole discussion frame seemed almost absurd. You know, that he would accuse these young climate change protesters of being selfish by disrupting a teeny weeny bit of the corporate profits that are responsible for the plunder of the planet. Plus, I mean, to say that exercising our rights as consumers in a capitalist society is threatening is frankly ridiculous.
I almost agree. You cannot stop us boycotting corporations and products. That's where my agreement ends. This woman thinks corporations are evil, and she thinks these protests just attack the corporations. But they attack the people getting to work, the people doing their work. It stops them earning money. And when you attack the small people, your message is fucked. You are going down hard. Did you see the people getting ripped off trains in England? Did you see people getting ripped off buses? Did you see the guy throwing people's phones and banners away in Canada? That's how the general public are responding to your stupid, fucked up idea of protest.
I mean, again, I think this is part of a bigger conversation and an ideology of a government who is moving towards censoring everybody.
Look, I'm not one to say governments aren't trying to censor us in any way. It's certainly shifting a lot. But who is it that's been saying we need to shut down white people all this time, especially white males? Asking for a friend, you understand. I mean, I fully understand we need to shut down anyone you don't like.
And masquerading around a whole host of different, civil liberties, the erosion of civil liberties, and now criminalising protests. I just want to take the opportunity to talk about climate change because I think it's been led by extraordinary young people, loud young people, who don't have other avenues. And people cannot vote, they cannot vote, they are now being criminalised for protesting, their MPs and governments are not listening to them. So I think these young people, either we come to terms with leading on climate change, or there's going to be more protests.
Well, we need all data on death against climate change. I mean, my main issue with what Obama said is that it was frankly liberties old versus young, and that's just the ancient, oldest tactic in the world to divide up groups that would otherwise join forces.
But just on the point that Obama was making, is there anything, old versus young, true, but what about, was there an element of it's easy on social media to take a pot shot at somebody and you're not actually doing anything in yourself, but meanwhile, you've caused a lot of grief for someone and nothing much has changed. Is that valid at all?
If there was truth to that, the feminists wouldn't be so upset about there being men's rights groups and so forth gathering online, would they now?
Yeah, it is, and there's certainly a bit of that. And the cancel culture that people talk about and whatever. But, I also agree with what people are saying on this panel, which is like, there are voices on social media now that we have never heard from,
Yeah, I know. I hope you're happy to have me here.
It's one of the best things about social media. There's some rampant awfulness about social media, but that is the best thing. And when I was writing this book about domestic abuse, I had their voices in my head and I had their scrutiny on my shoulder, and it made me write a better book. Because I thought someone can call me out. If I write something that isn't nuanced enough, or if I betray, the principles or whatever I do, someone's going to call me out for it. And it was great.
I don't know, how many of us out here think that this woman wrote a good book about domestic violence, given she thinks there's not enough men in the violence against women movement? I promised some form of summary, and I can honestly say I had no fucking idea what this idiot woman was on about. She was all over the fucking shop. She had to kick off with the all-important mention of being Egyptian-American and telling us about the failed revolution there for some fucking reason. She compared that to some guy called fascist fuck Donald Trump. She compared our Prime Minister to this to being a mini Donald Trump. Although, personally, I think Donald Trump is probably more intelligent. She then said because it's all about white supremacists and patriarchy, etc., etc., because apparently there's some et-ceteras that we're just supposed to assume all coexist in the same evil level of hell, the feminist hell of the patriarchy. She then said that Donald Trump's a wannabe dictator. My understanding was he was about to participate in elections again. But yes, wannabe dictator. She compared our PM to Pence then for some reason. Oh, Trump, Pence, what the fuck is he? Will you make up your mind? But she was doing that because of the religious connection. And then she went on to say white evangelicals voted for Trump, as if nobody else voted for Trump, and as if our electoral system, with our very atheistic or at least non-religious country, is the same fucking thing, because that was the comparison she was making. After that, she just, hang on, I'll turn over this torn open envelope and we'll have a look what else she wrote. Media, oh that's right, apparently we're not allowed to say the media are the enemy of the people. And then she went on some evangelical rant about protests, as if it was the end times, as you would find described by any evangelical Christian coming knocking on your door to tell you about the evening news and the horrors of the evening news. It was so religious that I cannot tell you how religious it felt. But she was just all over the fucking shop. She couldn't even decide what country she was in. That last bit was protests all over the fucking world, which she was saying was all young people. It's just fucking stupid. Right, I'm not going to play it for you. The links are in the bloody bar below. Go and look that shit up for yourself if you're game.
It's the boundaries as well. You know, this Morrison government wouldn't be the first government to, have a great protesters, young protesters. I mean, well, Vietnam, I mean, are we just seeing a usual cycle there, or is it something different, do you think? Well, I wasn't around during Vietnam. But yeah, it does seem like business as usual. And part of me is thinking, well, perhaps there is something that people are doing right now that's really effective and scaring shit out of him, which is great. But we really have to be, I think, very, if we think about the digital sort of invasion of our privacy and legislation that's enabled that, as well as I think there's been a creep towards giving police more powers against protesters, like Queensland's looking at it down here in Victoria. I think, so yeah, Scott Morrison can say what he wants, but then there's things like, how do you legislate against boycotts? I don't even know how that's...
No, I'm not sure they know.
I don't know, but that's a promise. For me, when I hear him say that, that's him trying to get in with the Resource Council. That's him... Yeah, he's just trying to tell on your side, guys. I don't know how much he can actually do, but on a state level, particularly on a state level, we need to make sure that we're... Just before we leave the whole protesting thing,
Mona, I'm just wondering, there's people, kids mostly on the streets in Hong Kong, young men and women in Iraq,
Lebanon,
in Lebanon.
Chile.
Is something different happening now? It isn't just social media or what are they, Slacktivism. It's not that.
It's not.
It's people on the streets.
I think what we're seeing happening across the world is the rise of two things. One is we're seeing these patriarchal authoritarians, as I've said, Bolsonaro in Brazil, Trump in the US, Scott Morrison here and others.
So when Donald Trump and all those were elected, that was a blowback against all this social justice nonsense. And you're now saying this protesting, which is still minority groups and well-funded activists, socialists largely, that's the counter to the common folk rising up and electing these people? I don't think you're on a winning horse yet. Now, coming up, and I'm going to fast forward it, is her usual list of all the satanic things that she, as a feminist, thinks is best fought through feminism. She's a hero.
And I'm also seeing a rise of people saying no. People saying we will resist. And as a feminist, for me, feminism is the best kind of resistance to that patriarchal authoritarianism. Because when you see all the countries rising up, they're rising up against corruption, they're rising up against capitalism, they're rising up in Lebanon, they're rising up against sectarianism. There was a women's protest on Sunday that was rising up against patriarchy, sectarianism, and authoritarianism and corruption. So you look at, and that's really essential. And I think the reason that we know about so many of them, and it's so invigorating to see, is because of social media. Is because we're so connected in ways that we weren't in the past. But I salute each and every person that goes out on the streets and risks their lives, and people have been killed for rights that you take for granted.
So don't think that because your economy is doing well, but when you have a prime minister who wants the pockets of capitalist giants like coal mining, how can you be talking about coal as 16-year-old young women are on the street saying, what kind of world are you giving us?
Well, that's easy enough for me to see, and I've mentioned this quite a few times. China is putting up black coal plants faster than anywhere else in the world. Their nuclear capacity is supposed to be increasing, but they're having troubles with timelines, the same as everyone always does. But while they're putting up the coal plants, they need coal to burn. Now, China has brown coal reserves. Do you know what's dirtier than black coal? While we're selling China our black coal, we may actually be doing the world a favour, saving them from burning their brown coal. Their increase in wealth means they need power. They are using LED technology and power-saving technology everywhere, and it is not enough. They are going to burn coal. Would you prefer they burned the brown stuff? Look, I'm not saying coal is good. I'm just saying we could be doing the best that we can at the moment. That was a shitload too hard for you to think of, though, wasn't it? Way too fucking hard. And it's way outside the scope of a 16-year-old who went to school, got told coal was dirty, and we needed to stop digging it up. And the climate's going to fucking ruin their life as well. I was writing about climate change 15 fucking years ago, and all the predictions today are the same predictions they were making back then, and they were fucking wrong then. How about we give it up and start looking for solutions and stop scaring the fuck out of the kids? Of course, I just replied to this moron, didn't I? Oh, she's a fucking idiot. Did I also forget to mention that China is an extremely imperialist country, and that if we don't sell them our coal, they might get fucking nasty? I'm married to a Chinese national. I have lived in China and spent a lot of time in China. I know just how imperialistic they are, and they spin the story all the time that anything the West does is to upset China and to be anti-Chinese. And the Chinese people lap it up. The Chinese ever decided to go to war with us for stopping coal exports to them because we were big meanies, the Chinese people would have no trouble standing behind it. And I know my wife well enough to know that I would see her to the gate of the internment camp.
So this is what we're seeing. We're seeing people who are saying, no, we deserve better, against these old white men mostly, who are saying, no, we want to keep our hands on everything. Yeah, and clearly you have to be on this side. That's what's changing.
It's not their age, it's not their race, it's their privilege.
Okay, so you're not the biggest, sexist, racist cunt beside you, but privilege? You're going down the route of privilege theory? You're no fucking more intelligent, are you? You're a fucking moron.
Well, I think that a lot of them, it is the old men.
They are indeed old men, and many are white, but that is because of the privilege that they have enjoyed their whole lives, that they are trying damn hard to hold on to, that is being threatened, but also as it never has been.
So you're saying they worked for the privileges they have and they want to hang on to them. Well, what privileges do you have from the work you did you'd like to hang on to? Should we just remove them all from everyone? Socialist utopia.
Privilege, isn't there also a disruption going on, and that's affecting not just the, as you would say, the old white men in power, it's affecting the people in the communities who that has been their livelihoods. This is a period of great change we're projecting here and living through.
People are terrified.
As well, I think old white men, like, yeah, you know, sure, absolutely. But when we, like, white women voted for Trump.
Oh, so I have a whole chapter on them, I know.
Yeah, we can't, yeah, I think it's a bit more nuanced than just...
It's ideology.
Kind of, yeah, it's easy to just say, okay, no, this one group. Anyway.
G'day everyone, I'm just going to break in here quickly. The next question's about to come up, and I just wanted to let you know that I'd let that roll just so that you got an experience of all the bits I fast-forwarded. Essentially, that is the intellectual level of the entire fucking last, 10 minutes. So, you know what it was about now. It was about fucking nothing. On to the next question, I guess.
No, we've got many questions to get through, and this one sort of flows. The next question comes from Murray Saunder.
Thanks, Fran. When trying to bring about significant change, when is aggression and violence a better option than assertiveness, strong arguments, and modelling the behaviour you expect of others?
Ashton?
When none of that other stuff works.
It's as simple as that?
Yep.
I have a great answer for this that a lot of people do not like. I want patriarchy to fear feminism.
Look, love, even when you find the mythical hell beast that you call a patriarchy, that great mythical beast it is, it's going to laugh at feminism. Have you looked at feminism? It's not fucking scary. Shit, look at you. Scariest thing about you is that fucking hair. And it's more laughable than scary. I'm pretty sure you can swear at the beast as much as you like, and it's just going to laugh in your face. That's providing you find it, really. I wish you luck.
And there is a chapter in my book on violence. There is a chapter on my book about white women who voted for Trump and white women who accept crumbs from patriarchy because they allow their whiteness to trump their gender. I'm fully aware of this. But at the end of the day, even those white women have to recognize that nothing protects them from patriarchy. Nothing. For me, as a feminist, the most important thing is to destroy patriarchy. And all of this talk about how if you talk about violence, you're just becoming like the men. My question...
Yep, I was looking like that during that bit too. Fucking totally dumbfounded. The whitest fucking Egyptian on the planet was yet again down on the white women for being part of the patriarchy.
So your question is a really important one, but I'm going to answer it with another question. How long must we wait for men and boys to stop murdering us, to stop beating us, and to stop raping us?
I don't know if you all noticed, maybe you haven't been watching, maybe you've only been listening, but she's had a guy hanging over her all night. He's killed her 3 times, raped her about 5. She's been molested, mugged and beaten just continually. It just goes on and on. Fuck, he jumped on the table and fucked her face at least 3 times. That was why she was quiet those few times. It's a terrible state of affairs. She never gets a fucking break.
How many rapists must we kill? Not the state, because I disagree with the death penalty, and I want to get rid of incarceration, and I'm with you on the police. So, I want women themselves. As a woman, I'm asking, how many rapists must we kill until men stop raping us?
Yes, she would do away with the police and incarceration, and she would want vigilantes to kill rapists on her behalf, I'm guessing. Or maybe she just wants to do it herself. Maybe she loves to get the blood on her hands. I don't know. She's a pretty disgusting piece of shit.
So, Mona, them's fighting words. Spectator Australia is already saying Mona's promoting violence.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're doing?
Well, what I'm doing is I'm saying that violence has been owned by the state. That violence has been given by the state to its police. That violence has been allowed to continue, unchecked mostly, by men, especially privileged men. So exactly how long do I have to wait to be safe?
Okay,
and when I say to
Murray,
be safe,
Murray,
there's a
what do you-
hierarchy of safety too.
She's not promoting violence. She's just saying that the police are violent and we shouldn't let them be violent anymore because it's not quite violence if we do it. That's what she's saying. I mean, it's all about her stopping getting face fucked on this show. Really, that's what it's about. She's sick of it. She's had it fucking enough. It's just happening all the fucking time. And when you kill the fucker who's face fucking her all the time, that won't be violent. Oh, and just a heads up before someone says I'm promoting rape. That guy who's face fucking her, he's not really there. He's a bit like the patriarchy. Unlike the patriarchy, he's just a construct to keep the conversation rolling and take the piss out of this idiot. Patriarchy theory is far more ominous.
Obviously, people of colour, disabled people, etc.
Murray, what do you think of that answer? How do you feel about this?
I guess there's 2 things. One is there's a lot of smashing and destroying.
Yes.
But what's the alternative? So
The alternative
that's
is a
one thing.
world where I'm not raped and murdered.
I'll tell you what, that bloke's a busy dude. He's fucking raped her and killed her again.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. That's a good start. The other thing is too, if you think about bullying, bullying begets bullies. So violence begets violence is what I'm seeing. So
Well, let me bring Jess in on that about the, violence begets violence.
Well, it's interesting. I think if anyone's shocked by what Mona's suggesting, you just have to look back to history and a certain faction of the suffragettes in the early 20th century, they used violence. They thought what they were fighting was a civil war between the sexes.
Yeah, because those women were also fucking insane. The suffragists, on the other hand, were a little less fucking insane. And you're right, maybe we shouldn't be shocked by insanity, but we used to have safe places to keep idiots like this. We used to call them asylums.
They smashed windows. That one suffragette actually went up to a young Winston Churchill in 1909 and whipped him with a horsewhip at a railway station. I mean, there was... Someone likes that. Winston Churchill did a lot of shitty things. That was, for a faction, a violent movement. And the only thing that stopped their militancy was World War I. If it hadn't been for World War I, there's no telling what might have happened because they were fighting...
I pose this question for you, because what the suffragettes went and did during the war was they started the White Feather campaign, where they shamed men who were unfit, too young, or had served already and come back with injuries to go and sign back up by giving them a white feather of shame for not serving. Now, this was a war against men by the suffragettes. Now, which do you think is worse? Their imagined war of the genders, or their very real war sending men back to die on the front? You don't get to be all high and mighty about your suffragettes fighting for their lives. They imagined they were fighting for their lives, whereas they were very really responsible for the deaths of men and boys.
For their lives.
And World War I was violence.
Hang on,
World
Mona,
War I is violence by men against men.
Mona, hang on 1 second. Let's have.
It's
Ashton
never
go.
the ideal. It's never the first thing to go to. But, you know, slave rebellions, I mean, there are many causes where people have resorted to violence as a way to finally break through and get heard and achieve what we need. And if that's what it takes, that's what it takes.
That comparison was women and slaves. Let that one sink in for a while. I mean, how much of other people's suffering do you want to trade on?
If I can just jump in, Mona. So I'm thinking, I just want to bring this conversation back to the land that we're on. Australia, whatever. Like, we live in a colonial state, and I think for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, we are living in a constant state of duress. We experience violence from so many different types of systems. We experience it interpersonally. When you say violence begets violence, there's something kind of, it's almost sounding like it's like a level playing field.
Oh, you're a fucking idiot. No, this doesn't have anything to do with level playing fields. It doesn't matter how you strike out at somebody. You get violent enough, they're going to strike back as hard and as violently as they possibly can to stop you ever doing it again. And that doesn't matter if it's a level playing field or not. As to your living in a constant state of violence from systems, you're a fucking idiot. You have the imagination of a fucking neurotic clown. The final one, person-on-person violence. Well, black-on-black crime is a real issue. How about you deal with that instead of pretending it's the white fella's fault everything bad's happening to you? Just for the record, I have friends, Aboriginal friends, who would laugh at you for this systems being violent towards you thing. Just the way that I have female friends who laugh at you for things like patriarchy theory and the fact you think you're going to be raped all the time.
Which it's not. It's absolutely not. So I think if you're defending yourself, then I think I'm surprised. I wonder what our kind of tipping point in Australia is going to be when people are going to start burning stuff. I look forward to it.
Well, there we go. A threat of burning shit down to top the fact that we should have vigilante violence. I'm going to leave it at that because I live in a Aboriginal suburb in an outback town, and fire engines are very regular here, so I think they're well on their way. In the last 12 months, 2 houses have been gutted, and one guy keeps setting his kitchen on fire when he gets pissed, and they keep lighting fires out in the scrub, so, you know, I think they're well on their way to her goal of burning the fucking world down. I'm just trying to avoid them burning my place down before I get the fuck out of here. And that's going to be my outro. We're going to end up with a third part to this. We haven't finished the show, but we're well into it now. I haven't seen the rest. I will be viewing it as soon as possible to get the video up and out. I have taken too long to get through this already. Until the next one, I guess. And so ends part 2. I have been the anti-theocrat, and may your gods remain fictional. I will see you in part 3 of this. We should get through it in part 3. Until then, stay well or whatever in the hell it is you're doing.